Welcome to the Hello Hornets podcast, an official podcast of the Mansfield Public Schools. In this episode, we speak with Qualters Middle School Assistant Principal Mary Cotillo. She speaks about her personal love of reading and the ways she increased access to literacy for students over the summer and beyond. You can listen to all of the episodes in the series by visiting mansfieldschoolnews.com/podcast or by following the Mansfield Public Schools on Facebook or Twitter. Assistant Principal Cotillo, thank you for being here. Do you want to start just by talking about what your role is in the district and sort of how long you've been here?
Sure. Thank you for having me. My name is Mary Cotillo. I am one of two assistant principals at Qualters Middle School. I am starting my third year with the district, so hopefully my first normal year, knock on wood. Prior to coming to Mansfield, I was an assistant principal in Franklin for 4 years, and prior to that, I was a middle school English teacher for 13 years. So my entire career has been spent in middle school education.
And is there one part of education that you're most passionate about?
Yes, I am very passionate about literacy. I believe literacy is a human right, that it is my responsibility to help students discover their love of reading. If I meet a student who says they don't like to read, I just think they haven't found the right book yet. So in my non-school life, I am known as a crazy reading lady. My best friend and I, Erin O'Leary, she and I are the crazy reading ladies, and we have a blog, and we provide professional development and just sort of spread literacy wherever we go. So I'm always looking for different ideas and opportunities for providing visibility to literacy at Qualters. So during COVID, I was really feeling disconnected from students, and everybody struggled with their mental health, I think, during COVID, and I was feeling pretty depressed and wanted to do something that I enjoyed that I thought would help other people. So I started doing First Chapter Fridays. And First Chapter Fridays it's an idea that I borrowed from Penguin Random House Publishing. And the idea is you read the first chapter of a book and share it with students so they can get ideas of things that they could read on their own. So I started recording just books that I had on my Kindle, because I could project the words on the screen so the students could see the page and see me read at the same time. So whatever I happened to have on my Kindle, I recorded the first chapter, and I talked to the students about the books and published those little 10 or 15 minute video clips in a Google Classroom, and shared the Google Classroom with any teacher who was teaching literacy. And one team in particular, our remote 6th grade team, the Navy team, was really wonderful about providing feedback for me. There were certain books that they loved, and there were certain books they did not like, thank you very much. And one of the books that they loved was Drums, Girls, and Dangerous Pie by Jordan Sonnenblick. And this summer, I was thinking about ways that I could, again, keep myself engaged and keep myself happy and keep in touch with students. And our students have summer reading requirements. In 6th through 8th grade, the requirement is to read 2 books. We send out a recommended reading list, but they can read any book of their choice. And Drums, Girls, and Dangerous Pie is a recommended book for 7th grade. So I decided I was going to read it chapter by chapter and post it to a Google Classroom, similar to First Chapter Fridays, but reading the whole book. And I had 57 people join that Google Classroom. Some of them are teachers, so I would say we probably had just over 50 students join that Google Classroom. And when I finished with Drums, Girls, and Dangerous Pie, we moved on to Insignificant Events in the Life of a Cactus by Dusty Bowling, another book that was highly reviewed by the Navy team students, and a recommended book for 6th grade. I was joined in reading by Nancy Brief Pills. She's our librarian over at the middle school, so she would pop in and guest read some chapters, and that was really nice, and the kids enjoyed, I think, hearing another voice and seeing another face. The other thing that I think is nice with the summer reading, Read Aloud, we sent the link to our incoming 6th grade students, so students who at the time were 5th graders at JJ, so they could get sort of a little introduction to at least me at the middle school. A lot of times students think of the assistant principals as big and scary and unapproachable, and they're worried about going to their office. Well, if they ever do get sent to my office, first of all, I want you all to know that I am not big and scary. I'm very nice. But they'll also hopefully find themselves in a familiar setting because I recorded my chapters in my office. So it won't be an unfamiliar setting. It's someplace they've seen before, and it's a person they've heard before, someone they've seen before in a positive context. So jumping back to the first chapter Friday, something that I noticed is as a teacher, you see kids all the time. You get to talk to them all the time. You build these wonderful relationships. As an administrator, it's very different. Most of the time when you're talking to kids, it's there because they've done something against the rules. Well, when I started doing First Chapter Fridays, kids started engaging with me differently. Most of the time when kids see me, I'm in the cafeteria doing lunch duty, like I'm a professional lunch duty monitor, right? And they started looking at me differently and asking, did you read that book? And then they started saying, oh, we just read that chapter. Oh, I liked it. Oh, this is my favorite part. I started seeing kids with the books that I'd read. Kids asked to borrow the books. It gave me a way of interacting with students that had nothing to do with school discipline. It was much more positive. It got kids would come to the office to borrow a book. They would come to the office to return a book. So it gave them an opportunity to interact with me over nothing that had to do with anything quote unquote bad. So that's been a really super positive, unexpected side effect, really, of doing this reading. I really and truly started it from a selfish place of what am I going to do to keep myself sane, and ended up with this really great relationship building strategy. Another thing we did on our summer reading Google Classroom was I found online, I don't know if I found it or Miss Brief Pills found it, but the author of the book House Arrest during COVID would escape her house and go sit in her car and read and record herself reading chapter by chapter the book that she wrote, House Arrest. And so I linked those as well. So on that Google Classroom, there are 3 books that students now have access to. They're only required to read 2, but they could read up to 3. And one, I say literacy is a human right. Well, one of the things that can get in the way of students pursuing literacy is access. Not everybody has access to books in their home. Not everybody has a ride to the library or lives within walking distance of the library. And so I feel pretty good about the fact that over the course of the summer, Miss Brief Pills and I provided access to these are good books. I mean, these are books that kids read and really like. And we've made it available to all the students at QMS.
And they will continue to be available throughout the whole school
Yes,
year?
I'll leave it up. Part of me wonders if the literacy teachers might not want to use it in their classes, but it will stay up. And I think it's also an idea that I will continue to use going forward. So we'll do the summer read alouds. Right now, we're lucky in that most publishers during COVID changed their copyright permissions so that if you are reading aloud within a closed system, so like Google Classroom keeps it to just Mansfield Public School students, that this kind of use is allowed. So we're not violating any copyright by doing this. So that's a good thing. And as long as those permissions stay the way they are, I'll continue to do this. Most people think of read alouds as something that ends at the elementary level, but I've yet to meet a middle school student or even a high school student who doesn't enjoy being read aloud to.
Well, this school year has just started. What sorts of things are you looking forward to?
The first thing I'm looking forward to is hopefully getting back to normal. We're starting off on a good foot. Maybe we are going to be wearing masks, but we're going to be together. We're scheduling normally. Last year, our schedule looked so different. Students moved in cohorts and stayed with the same kids, and that's not happening this year. They're going to have a much more typical middle school experience. Even if we do have masks on our face, we're still going to be in our classrooms together. We're going to be able to do labs like we used to. Kids are going to be able to sit more than 2 kids to a table at lunch. It's just going to feel so much more normal, and I'm really looking forward to that. And, hopefully I'll be able to continue doing my First Chapter Fridays. I'll be able to keep talking to kids about books. We'll have more lunchtime conversations about what they're reading, and they can give me ideas of what I can read. And I'm looking forward to seeing kids again.
Well, good luck with the new year.
Thank you.